What's up, y'all, and Happy New Year. Cliche Dude Stuff back at you with another and final installment in the A Movie a Day series, at least the 2023 edition. How is everyone doing today? Now, I'm not going to get into the future of this channel and whether or not I'm going to do this again next year. I'll just make a separate video on that. But we're just going to go ahead and jump into the 53 movies I watched in December. I didn't think I would watch more than I did in November, but here we are. So I'm going to have to go through these quick because I want to try to keep this video under an hour if possible. I started the month off with the original Nosferatu. Of course, Nosferatu being made as basically a Dracula story, but they couldn't use the Dracula name, so they made a new character, which was great. And there's actually going to be a Nosferatu movie that comes out this year, 2024. Does this movie hold up? For me, it does. Now, of course, it is, black and white silent film, so not everyone's gonna dig it, but as a enjoyer of film history, I had a good time when I was watching it. I didn't feel like sometimes when I watch older movies, I feel like I'm just doing homework and I kind of hate what I'm watching, but I feel like it's my obligation as someone who enjoys film to watch, just watch how it kind of like progressed. Especially with the AFI Top 100, I wanted to get through that in 2023, and I was able to. But a lot of those movies just, I didn't care about them, and they just wanted to like gouge my eyes out while watching them, if I'm being honest. And not that they were bad movies, they just weren't for me. Nosferatu was not like that. I enjoyed it. The practical effects, the acting, everything for me, especially when you take into the year it was made, I think it was just phenomenal. And again, I really look forward to the 2024 version, directed by Robert Eggers, who y'all might know that I love. Directed one of my favorite movies, The Witch. So yeah, I'll look forward to that. The next movie I watched, we had a movie night, me and a couple friends, and we watched Men, which I think came out last year, but may have been the year before. I'm not 100% sure. It's a weird movie. It's one of those movies where, weird stuff kind of happens throughout, but then it just kind of like a heap of just weird stuff happens in maybe like the last 15 or 20 minutes. And it worked for me. I get it doesn't work for everybody. Again, it is a very weird movie. It does have, some commentary on, trauma and just kind of like the gender dynamics. But I think it's a good movie, but it's polarizing. A lot of times you'll get like where critics love a movie, but the audience hate it just because like it's just too out there. I think this is one of them where kind of audience and critics were kind of mixed on it, just because it was real out there, really out there. But I don't know, it worked for me. Moving on to Godzilla Minus One. This is a movie I like saw the trailer whenever I was doing my all day movie day. I want to say I saw the trailer a few times in those movies. I could be wrong, but I didn't really think much of it because I like Godzilla, but just the IP for me has just been kind of watered down. But this isn't one of the American versions, which if you like those, that's totally fine. I'm not attacking those. But I started getting recommended a lot of reviews for this movie. I didn't watch them, but just from the thumbnails and stuff, like people were reacting like it was a really good movie. So I decided to check it out, in theaters, and I was blown away. Godzilla, this is probably my favorite Godzilla movie, even going above Shin Godzilla for me, because this movie did something that really no other Godzilla movie has been able to do, and that's they made me care about the human characters. My only like flaw with Shin Godzilla is I really didn't care. They had all like the military meetings and stuff like that, which is fine, but I didn't care. I just wanted to see Godzilla, wreak havoc. But in Godzilla Minus One, you follow, this group of people, particularly this, one man who's trying to redeem himself from something that happened kind of before the movie started. And at first you're like, oh, whatever. But by the end of the movie, you're rooting for this guy, and they made Godzilla an actual monster. Like, a lot of times in Godzilla movies, it's kind of like horror movies. You just want Godzilla to just kill everybody. But in this one, again, you root for the human characters. At least I did. I'm going to move on, but watch Godzilla Minus One. The next one I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on because I did cover it earlier in the year. There were a few movies this year that I watched a couple times. I still included in the list. That may be controversial, but it's my list, so deal with it. But I watched Coherence. I introduced my brother to it, and a weird movie. There's little weird time stuff involved. I don't want to spoil it. Watch it. I'm pretty sure it's on Tubi. I am just a Tubi fanatic at this point. Moving on to the best years of our lives. The movie from the 1940s I watched because of the AFI Top 100. I didn't hate this one. Of course, like I mentioned, how a lot of the movies on the AFI Top 100 just felt like homework. Now, would I have just watched this movie if it wasn't on on the AFI Top 100? Probably not. I mean, the premise of people returning home from war and just trying to readjust to life and things like that doesn't necessarily intrigue me. Without like something else to like cling on to. Just because like I've seen so many like war movies and stuff like that, at this point I'm just kind of like burnt out from the concept of whether it's like movies in war or movies like post-war. But this was a good movie. There was, again, older movies with the weird relationships, old men getting with like super young, even if they're adults, but like a 35-year-old pursuing an 18-year-old or whatever. I don't know if those are the exact ages. Don't come after me if that's not 100% right. But I feel like one of the relationships was kind of problematic like that. But I mean, you're gonna see that in those old movies. Not to justify it, but it's not a unique experience. But I do think the movie was. It's one of them that I didn't hate. Next up, When Evil Lurks. I think it's an Argentinian film, if I'm not mistaken. Horror movie from this year. I think it is a Shudder exclusive, if I'm not mistaken. But it's a good one that I recommend to all horror fans. Kind of brutal, not like brutal throughout, but there are a couple scenes. There's one particular with a face and I'm gonna just do that motion, and it was pretty intense. But it was a good movie. Basically, demons more or less acting like a parasite or like an illness. But yeah, I think it's a very fresh horror movie, and I definitely recommend it. Next up, The Apartment. This is one of them. Again, AFI Top 100, because I had to finish. A lot of them on this month are going to be from the AFI Top 100 because I had to finish it. That was my goal, or one of my goals this year. But The Apartment, this dude basically just renting out his apartment to just big wigs in his company, and then just shenanigans happened. I did not care. Not saying it's a bad movie, but I didn't care, and I just don't have a whole lot to say about it. So I'm just going to move on, so I'm just not like super negative. Black Christmas, one of the original slashers, if not seen as the original slasher, unless I'm mistaken. Because I'm pretty sure this one came out before Halloween. I could be wrong. Because again, I don't have notes. I'm just talking. Definitely fact check me. Don't just take my word for this stuff. But Black Christmas was pretty fun. One thing that kind of stood out at me, I can't remember the character's name or the actor's name, but the lead actor, her accent is so inconsistent because I think she's British, but she's playing an American character. And I feel like an accent kind of comes and goes, but it doesn't ruin the film. And yeah, so Black Christmas, it's got some of the tropes that from slasher movies, but then kind of like with what was the one Tourist Trap, I think. How it's got some of the tropes, but then it does things a little different, just because not all the they were kind of the first of their genre. But I think it holds up. Is it a great movie? Probably not. It's very cheesy, very hokey, but I like it. Next up, Dream Scenario, new A24 movie with Nicolas Cage. I love this movie about a man who basically just people start dreaming about him, and he more or less becomes a viral dream person. Like, he becomes famous because literally people are just dreaming about him. and he tries to use that to his advantage. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but he tries to use that to his advantage, even though it's like he didn't do anything. I mean, he did stuff in his life, like he's a professor and everything, but he got a platform out of nowhere for nothing that he did. But then he also loses that platform again for nothing that he did. And I think it's a good movie. One of Nicolas Cage's, it could be recency bias, but one of Nicolas Cage's best performances, in my opinion. And for me, this is one of the best movies of the year. It definitely won't be for everybody, though, and I understand that. Moving on to Modern Times, a Charlie Chaplin movie, and I liked it. A lot of these older, the slapstick Charlie Chaplin, Buster Keaton, more so Charlie Chaplin, I feel like would do better because they try to tell like a full story, and I respect that. But they do, even though they're short, like hour 15, whatever they are, they kind of wear out their welcome just because they're just little slapstick humor things. And just looking at them from a modern lens, I don't hate them, but they're more digestible in smaller portions, I think. Again, not bad movies by any means. I enjoy them, but I catch myself. I go from like laughing, like kind of legit, and then like to chuckle, to just air out of my nose, to just waiting for the movie to be over, and I hate that. That's probably just a me thing. But yeah, moving on. The Killer, the new David Fincher movie. I didn't get to see it in theaters. I don't know why. I feel like this was just kind of hushed released and then just put on Netflix. I don't know why it's David Fincher. Like, this should be an event. We had a Scorsese movie this year. We had a Christopher Nolan movie this year. We had a David Fincher movie. Now, is he right up there with those names? Maybe not, but I mean, he's still really, really good. And some would argue that he is up there with those names. But The Killer was a good movie. Love Michael Fassbender. Basically, just you're following a hitman or assassin, whatever, as he's just kind of like doing his thing. He makes a mistake in the beginning of the movie. Then this turns into like a revenge movie. He's not a good guy. He makes, he's got his own little moral compass that he tries to stick to. But he doesn't always stick to it. But I think it was a good movie. I heard one of my the YouTubers that I watch, maybe Amanda the Jedi, maybe not, compare it to like, or say that this is David Fincher holding up a mirror up to himself and how he creates movies. And whether or not that's true, I don't know, but I could see it. Really good movie, and again, it's on Netflix. The Twilight Samurai was recommended to me by a coworker, and this was a really good movie. It's not an over-the-top samurai movie, so some people may not like it. Like, it doesn't end with like this big, drawn-out, like just crazy over-the-top battle. But it was really good, and I am not going to know names because, again, I don't write things down, and just in the moment, I forget. But the main actor is the same guy who played Scorpion in the 2021 Mortal Kombat. And dude's got moves. And the Twilight... Excuse me. Sorry, I don't edit these, so here we are. The Twilight Samurai, really good. Definitely recommend watching it. Moving on to West Side Story. This is a musical that I think I would have liked more if Grease wasn't the first musical that I ever saw. I am a fan of musicals, but West Side Story feels like the movie that Grease was parodying, and to watch it just be just so sincere. I don't hate it, but it's just I couldn't take it seriously, and that's a me thing. It's not on the movie, but yeah. West Side Story. Haven't watched the new one. This is the one from 1961. Moving on to Intolerance. Again, AFI Top 100. This is a movie that I've wanted to watch for a real long time. And I think I hyped myself up too much for it. It's still impressive, especially in scope. It's from 1916. Over 100 years ago. By several years. But... story, like spectacle and stuff, it did good. Like it's again crazy that they could do so much back then. and it's like four different stories or whatever it is. But to me, it was hard for me to get invested. And again, that's me, but I wanted to be able to sing its praises, but alas, I cannot do that. Moving on to Elf, I will sing its praises because Elf is a great Christmas movie. Because again, these are movies from December, so of course I was gonna watch Christmas movies. Elf with Will Ferrell and Zoe Deschanel, and I always forget that's her. You know, like the blonde hair throws me off. Love Zoe Deschanel, but it's always jarring when I go back and watch it. I'm like, oh yeah, that's Zoe Deschanel. But Elf is Will Ferrell, kind of maybe at his Will Ferrellist. Between this and maybe Will Ferrell, like he's at his Will Ferrellist and probably everything he's in, honestly. But Elf, you know, just really funny holiday classic. Is it my favorite Christmas movie? No, that's gonna go to The Grinch, but it's still a good movie nonetheless. Jack Frost from 1979. Jack Frost is a weird little dude, and it's funny and actually refreshing how in the story, you know, there's this love angle. You know, he's trying to get with this, you know, human woman, but then she's like, nah, like I'm dating this dude, and then he's like, okay, cool. Like, good on you, King. Like, Jack Frost respecting boundaries. Like, pop off, say less, do your thing. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's a cute little holiday movie. It's weird. I haven't seen it since I was like a little kid. Yeah, Jack Frost is a weird one, but I liked it. Next, I watched the two Home Alone movies. I was gonna watch Home Alone 3, and then I forgot. So yeah, Home Alone 1 and 2, great movies. I prefer Home Alone 2 over 1, but and I think that's just because like the shenanigans with New York and everything, like, or you know, it's just better. And Tim Curry, you know, yeah, the Donald Trump cameo is hilarious. So for me, Home Alone 2 is like the more enjoyable movie. I won't say it's better. I don't know. It actually might be better for me because Home Alone 2 just hits. You know, the only thing that Home Alone 1 does better for me is, you know, with the neighbor versus the bird lady in the second one. I like the story with the neighbor better. Um, but yeah, Home Alone 1 and 2 are both holiday classics for reasons. And shout out to my boy Macaulay Culkin. Just doing his thing. You know, he's just doing so well in real life. Brenda's song just being there for him and everything. And I love that for both of them. Moving on to Black Swan, which was the 420th movie that I watched this year. And never seen it before, and it is such a good movie. It gave me Whiplash vibes, even though this came out before Whiplash. Um, just, you know, a really good movie about the dangers of trying to perfect your craft to the extent of giving yourself away, giving up who you are as a person, literally putting your heart and soul into your work, which a lot of times, you know, when you think about like artists and stuff like that, like you think of that as a positive, you know, as far as them putting their entire being into what they do. But if they do it to the detriment of their health and of their psyche, it's not a good thing. A lot of people think Whiplash is a happy ending. It's not. I don't think anyone thinks Black Swan is a happy ending because it definitely is not. Great movie though. Highly recommend watching it. It is on Netflix. North by Northwest, a Alfred Hitchcock classic. I liked it. This is my second time watching it. Not this year though. But I like this movie, but it's one of those where it's kind of, you know, it's cliche, just especially with the love interest and just the main protagonist is just like, yeah. So I don't think it holds up, but it's not the fault of the movie. It's just because the stuff that this movie does has just been overdone, I guess. Moving on to MASH, the movie, not the series, obviously. And this movie is something else as far as it's funny because when I watch older movies, obviously, like a lot of problematic things arise. I don't see how these things weren't problematic even back then. Just the stuff with the women in the movie, the stuff with other races besides white in the movie, are not okay. Is the movie itself good? I mean, there's some funny parts, but most of it is just mean humor. You know how I think it was George Carlin that says comedians shouldn't punch down, and I know he was talking about stand-up comedians, but I feel like that's all this movie was, and maybe it's just me, being whatever, but it was hard for me to finish this movie. It was one of the movies like I almost felt like I had to turn off. Am I being overly sensitive? Maybe, but I don't care. Moving on to The Deer Hunter. This is another one, another war movie about people, coming back from war and just trying to like carry on with their life. The Deer Hunter has Robert De Niro and Christopher Walken, and the I'm pretty sure this is one of those that was over 3 hours long. A lot of those, which is like I like long movies. Sometimes they drag though. This one kind of felt like it dragged a little bit, but it did pay off. It's got a heartbreaking ending, but a really good movie nonetheless. And again, another one of the AFI Top 100. Moving on to Nashville from 1975, or Nashville, however you want to say it. But so this is a movie. It follows a lot of characters. It's like a lot, and just all their stories kind of like intertwining and just like political themes throughout the movie. I don't know. It's hard for me to like stick with movies that are just like let's follow all these characters, because then I get lost and I'm just you trying to keep up with everything, and it's hard to keep me invested. Not that it's a bad movie, but I didn't care that much. Cabaret, a kind of a twist on a love triangle. The movie, like, so it's taking place right before World War II, if I'm not mistaken, before the Nasties were taken over. I did steal that just because apparently YouTube doesn't like when you use the actual word. I don't know if that's true or not, but yeah. Before the bad German powerful people were taken over is when this movie ends. So it kind of ends on a downer. But then it's a love triangle. You got your lead actor and the two dudes. But then there's a funny twist about the love triangle is working in various ways that maybe you're not expecting. Very goofy movie, very jarring with its imagery, I guess. Especially in the cabaret with the performances and the dances and the weirdness. But I liked it. Moving on to my favorite Christmas movie that I watched twice this month, and so it counts twice. I don't care. How the Grinch Stole Christmas with Jim Carrey. I love this movie so much. I've seen people trash it. I don't care. I love it. It's such a quotable movie, such a fun movie. Of course, Jim Carrey's going to be a legend. A lot of his stuff, and he's a legend in everything he does. A lot of the stuff he does as the Grinch is just him doing Jim Carrey, his Jim Carrey shtick. But I don't care. I love it. It's kind of like early season SpongeBob. It's such or Shrek. It's such a memeable movie, but it's also such an endearing movie. And this will probably forever be my favorite Christmas movie. And I don't care. It's good. You can't tell me otherwise because I'm stubborn and I don't listen to anybody else. That part's not true, but I'm not budging on that. Next up, I watched Wonka. Timothy Chalamet as Wonka. Wasn't super excited for this movie when I saw the initial trailer that everybody was like, well, this is kind of hokey. This is such a cute little movie, and I feel bad for ever doubting my boy Timmy Tim. It was super cute. A different take on Wonka, yes, but I see it as this is Wonka before he got like cynical and like burnt out and just let his past traumas catch up to him and beat him into the ground. This is Wonka when he was still young and optimistic. And he's already had tragedy in his life, yes, but it hasn't destroyed him as a person yet. Very wholesome movie. So definitely watch Wonka with an open mind. I think you'll like it. Maybe you won't. You're your own person. I'm my own person. We're our own people. That's fine. But I loved Wonka. It was super cute. And they say the word bussy. Next up, where am I at? I lost my place. Bah Humduck, a Looney Tunes Christmas. That's the title, but it's basically a Looney Tunes Christmas Carol with Daffy Duck playing, Scrooge. It's cute. It's a Christmas Carol. You know the story, like with the ghost and this and that and the other, except This one has got like a basically he's the CEO of like Walmart is like the little gimmick of it. But it's cute. It's like 45 minutes. So some of the movies I watched have been about 45 minutes, and I count those even though I don't count like the South Park specials that I watched. It's fine. Next up, The Intern. I didn't know anything about this movie. Um, Hold on, where's my brain? Robert De Niro. Um, I, I'm going blank. Anne Hathaway. I'm like I see her face. I can't. Robert De Niro and Anne Hathaway in this cute little comedy movie that I just went under my radar. I love this movie so much. There's only one. I only have one nitpick, and that's with a cheating little thing that gets forgiven for no reason. It felt like one of those plot, little, or just little, C or even D plots that came out of nowhere was resolved, was not necessary for the movie, and it's the only thing like you could edit it out, and the movie would be pretty much just the same. Um, but other than that, The Intern's such a good movie. Again, never even knew it existed. Watch it if you want like a good time and you want to laugh. The cheating part will make you mad. But other than that, next up, Network. I'm trying to remember which this one was. Oh, basically, a news anchor is getting like fired, or they're making him retire or something. He threatens to unalive himself, and then things get crazy, and they kind of take advantage of his like prophetic messages, and it's a weird one. Like it's kind of like I don't want to say that it's conspiracy theory because a lot of his stuff is based in reality, but a lot of it is giving old man yells at cloud. Not really. That's not really how that meme works, but I could see like if like people of today watch it, like I could see it making them even more paranoid than what they are about our political landscape. Let me say it that way. Moving on. Gretel and Hansel, or Hansel, yeah, Gretel and Hansel. It's just weird. It feels weird saying them backwards. But this movie probably should have just been called Gretel. I was hoping it would be in the vein of The Witch, whereas it was a slow burn but still enjoyable. It wasn't. It wasn't that, and maybe that's my fault for having bad expectations or the wrong expectations. It was definitely a slow burn movie, but I felt like even though The Witch, like a lot of people say, there's no payoff. This one for me, there's no real payoff, and then they resolve the issue or the big issue or the climactic battle is over so fast. Like this is definitely just an atmospheric movie, which is okay. Again, I definitely feel like it should have just been called Gretel because Hansel is barely even a plot device. But I think I had too high of expectations. Moving on, Jack Frost, the horror movie from 1997. Um, Cheesy, cheesy, cheesy. I love it. And I kind of wish we got more of Jack Frost before he turned into the snowman in this because his actor is just like just hamming it up, just being evil and just like enjoying it. But even as a snowman, like it's such a cheesy movie, but I love it. I haven't seen the second one because the first one is like so good, or so bad it's good. But apparently the second one is just bad and boring. Don't know if I'll ever watch the second one, but Jack Frost the horror movie again, 1997, was I had a better time than I thought I'd have. Moving on to Unforgiven with Clint Eastwood and also Morgan Freeman. Again, not a huge Western fan, but my thing with Westerns, right, is I don't care about the whole Western setting and stuff doesn't do anything for me. But if you can make good Western characters, I'm hooked. Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, um, Tombstone. A modern one would be the Brothers Sisters or the Sisters Brothers. If you can make good characters, then I'll watch it and I'll probably have a good time. Unforgiven has that, it did that. Clint Eastwood's character, Morgan Freeman's character, and just like their whole like dynamic of being retired outlaws basically that are more or less dragged back into this life of crime. They're basically going to avenge. Basically, one of these cowboys cut up this lady pretty bad, and this he needed to be punished, but they were kind of like they were asked to take the law into their own hands, which you know you can argue they shouldn't have done. They were doing it for money because Clint Eastwood's family, he had kids. His wife, she's already passed. He needs to take care of his kids, so he needs money. But yeah, I enjoyed this movie. Is it sad? Yeah, but it's not like super, super like just has you boohooing, or at least it didn't me. But it's still a good movie. Moving on, I don't know how controversial this movie is. I wasn't looking forward to it at all, but I liked it. Again, I don't know if it's controversial or not, so I'm gonna just talk about I liked it. Movie called Tootsie, starring Dustin Hoffman, right? Well, super famous actor. I always hesitate when I say his name because I feel like I'm not saying it right. Not because it's a weird name. I just feel like the first name's wrong, but I'm gonna roll with it anyway. I like this movie. An actor basically pretending to be a woman, kind of Ms. Doubtfire kind of vibes. But yeah, so a man pretending to be a woman to be on a soap opera, and his relationships and stuff with that. I mean, that's the movie, and I enjoyed it. It worked for me. Again, I don't know if it's controversial. I don't know if it's problematic. Y'all let me know. But I did enjoy it. I'll leave it there. The original Wicker Man. Of course, earlier in the year, I watched the Nicolas Cage version of this movie. Um, so this is the original one, and it's definitely not as cheesy as the Nicolas Cage version. I kind of like the Nicolas Cage version better. Not that this is a bad movie by any means, but I don't know. I guess the fact that it should be taken seriously. I think I watched them in the wrong order. I think if I would have watched this one first, I would have liked it more. But since I watched it, the Nicolas Cage version first, I don't know. I think it kind of ruined it for me. I didn't hate it, but anyway, moving on. Saving Private Ryan. Not a whole lot I can say about this movie that no one else has said. Just really tragic war movie about a lot of people dying trying to save one dude. So you hear about the movie Saving Private Ryan and how they're going to save one guy. Before watching the movie, you think to yourself, why are they gonna risk however many lives to save this one dude's life? It doesn't really make sense, but I'm sure the movie will explain it. But then you watch the movie and it's like, I don't know. I kind of feel the same way. Why did they risk all their lives to save this one dude's life? I, I still don't know. The call is questionable, but it doesn't like make the movie bad or anything. But that question still remains. Like, who made that decision? Like, what? But yeah, Saving Private Ryan, really good war movie. Gruesome, but it's a war movie, so. Next up, All the President's Men. Basically, it's just a movie about Watergate, the whole thing with President Nixon and all that fun stuff. Dustin Hoffman again. I hated the lead characters, the journalists, and it's probably just because not that I hate journalists, but I hate the idea of reporters and stuff that won't leave people alone and let them leave their personal life to their personal life. Don't come to their house. And this whole movie is them going to people's houses and people are saying no comment, and they're just being so intrusive, and I hate it. So I guess it's just the reality when it comes to journalism. But no. Get out of my face if I say no comment. So yeah. that's not really about the movie, but it did kind of hinder the movie. Moving on. Audition. This is another one. I set the wrong expectations. Whenever I think about, or whenever a conversation is brought up about disturbing movies, this one gets brought up a lot, and I just haven't watched it until now. And it was made in the late '90s, so pre Saw and all that. So maybe I just didn't put myself in the right mind space. But really, the only real disturbing stuff kind of happens towards the end, and I guess that's the problem. Is I was watching it with the intention to be disturbed. It was a good movie, like storyline wise and everything. It was good, but it didn't like. I was expecting it to affect me the same way like Martyrs from 2008 did, and that's my fault. I still think it's a good movie. Just don't expect it to, affect you all that much unless you just aren't into disturbing movies at all. But then you probably just wouldn't even watch this movie anyway. Moving on to Caveat, which came out a few years ago. I didn't even know about it. I just saw a TikTok about it and figured I would give it a shot. And the whole premise of this guy basically babysitting this teenage girl, young adult, something like that. And he agrees to tie himself in a chain. That's the movie. He's basically got to babysit someone while being tied up or strapped to a chain that's like strapped to a vest that he's in, basically so he can't go in her room. And then just like possible supernatural stuff happens. I actually like this one. I didn't expect to like it because of that one stupid thing. Like, why would you agree to lock yourself in a chain to babysit somebody? But if you can get over that logical leap, I actually liked it. Moving on to The Last Voyage of the Demeter. I've been wanting to watch this movie, finally getting around to it, and it's another Dracula movie. I've watched quite a bit of Dracula movies this year, and I'm glad I did. The Last Voyage of the Demeter is more of an animalistic an animalistic look at Dracula. Because he's on a boat, he's not in society, so he doesn't have to like put on like a front or anything. He doesn't have to be this high class whatever. He's just a beast. A lot of times you think of Dracula being a man that can turn into a monster when really he's a monster that can turn into a man. I loved this movie. The only issue I had with it was the last little bit, and I think Jeremy Jahns had the same complaint. The last maybe like 15 minutes made it feel like they were trying to set up like an extended universe. Don't do that. Just have a good movie. So it was 2 hours long and it probably should have been less. But other than that, I enjoyed it. A really fresh take on the character, in my opinion. Moving on to The Wild Bunch. Remember everything I said earlier about not caring about westerns, but if I like the characters, I'm invested. So that, but reversed. As in, did not care about the characters. So this is a movie that was made basically as a last hurrah to westerns, is the way I heard. Like whenever I was like looking into it after the fact, like westerns were dying out, so they wanted to do this big, whatever. I did not care. I didn't care about anybody in this movie. I even dozed off at one point and had to like rewind it. Again, it was on the AFI Top 100. This is what I mean when I say it just felt like I was doing homework, and I hated it, and I feel bad, but it's the truth. Moving on to a movie I did not hate. In fact, a movie that I loved. The Boy and the Heron. Studio Ghibli, perhaps the last Miyazaki film we will ever see. And the only one that I've seen in theaters besides the Spirited Away play, which doesn't really count. The Boy and the Heron was so good. I watched the English dub because of Robert Pattinson, and I didn't look at the posters or anything beforehand, so I didn't know how many people were going to have little cameo roles. I'm going to spoil them for you. I didn't know Willem Dafoe was going to be in there. I didn't know Batista was going to be in there. Just to name a couple, and I hear their voice, and I'm like, wait a minute. But The Boy and the Heron, it felt like a movie Miyazaki made to express his own existential fear of whether or not his life's work actually has the impact that he wanted it to have, or that's the way I interpreted the movie. And it was really good. Moving on to Watch The Boy and the Heron when it comes to streaming. I think it's coming to Max this year. Now moving on. I watched The Grinch again. So moving on past that, I watched The Iron Claw, the A24 movie about the Von Erichs, the very, very sad story about the Von Erichs, starring Zac Efron and a lot of talented people. Um, this is such a sad movie. As a wrestling fan, I knew a little bit about like the Von Erich story. I used to play a game called The Legends of Wrestling, and for whatever reason, I love the Von Erichs. I say for whatever reason because they didn't have a big character gimmick, so it's weird that they stood out to me, when I was playing the game. But I was always interested in just the Von Erichs, and just the claw being a finishing move was always so silly to me, but I loved it. But yeah, the Iron Claw it's a very tragic story and a very good what's the word I'm looking for? It's a warning sign to what is actually toxic masculinity. I don't know what word I'm looking for, but yeah. So a lot of times you hear the term toxic masculinity thrown around for stuff that's not even either not toxic or not actually masculinity. It's just like whatever. But this movie definitely toxic masculinity when it comes to the dad and him literally not giving a toss about his kids. He just wants them to be wrestlers and to bring home the NWA championship to the point it drives them mad, is a good way to put it. Very tragic story, very good movie though, and I definitely recommend watching it, especially if you're a wrestling fan. Bring your tissues, you will cry. Perhaps Zac Efron's best performance, in my opinion. Moving on to, this was on Christmas Day. A movie, surprisingly, I had not seen because I've been avoiding because of all the 24-hour marathons as a kid that I just, it drove me bonkers. So anytime someone would put it on, I would leave the room year after year after year after year. A Christmas Story. I hated this movie before I watched it. After watching it, I was like, oh, you know what? It's actually not bad. Is it pretty like just cheesy and just like whatever? Yeah, it's actually pretty fun. A lot of little funny parts. A lot of times that I chuckled. It's supposed to be cheesy, I think. There is the kind of the thing at the Chinese restaurant that's kind of iffy, but at the end of the movie. But other than that, I think it holds up well, and I wish I would have watched this when I was younger. It was a fun little movie. Now, should it have been ran into the ground? Probably not. Um, but it's not bad, and yeah, I could see myself watching it again. If someone else will, I'm not gonna like go out of my way and watch it, every Christmas or anything like that. But if I have some friends that want to watch it, I won't be opposed. Moving on, The Nightingale, not a Christmas movie, but I watched it on Christmas, because again, no life gang, just watching movies on Christmas all day. This was a pretty brutal movie. It's a good movie, but man, was this movie brutal. Basically, just a revenge movie. Got this woman going after this captain who killed her family, her husband and her baby. And there's a lot of intense scenes here. There's a lot of R word. Well, yeah, I mean, there's at least two R. No, there's like three R word scenes. So definitely don't watch it if you're sensitive like to that kind of stuff. Um, it's a good movie, but man, it was pretty rough. Good movie though. Just make sure you're aware of that if you go to watch it. And I'm pretty sure that was on Tubi as well. Movie called Do the Right Thing. Another one, AFI Top 100. I didn't hate this movie. But like it's a very important movie as far as it's about prejudice and racism, discrimination, things like that. I don't know if it was. I'm not gonna speak on it too much. Just like as a white guy, was it handled in the best way? I don't know. Was it a good movie? I think so. I don't know. Watch it and let me know what you think. Moving on to this one, I think it's pronounced Titan, Titane. It's a French film about a woman who gets impregnated by a car and then has the baby at the end. But that's not even really what the movie's about. Like, so she assumes a missing person's identity. So she pretends to be a missing person so she can get into the life of the dad. I thought it was so she could kill him. Like, maybe, because, like, she kills people early in the movie. But that doesn't happen. And then they just actually have this father son, because like she poses as this dude's son, so they develop a father son relationship, and it's actually pretty wholesome. I mean, the movie's like, it's, it's dark, I guess. It's pretty twisted. Um, but the car impregnating the character thing really has nothing to do with the movie. I mean, it shows up like whenever she's like pregnant, and like she starts like leaking like oil, and just like little weird things like that. But that's more just like dressing. That's not actually like the movie's a good character movie. Anyway, so we go from Titan to, which is the French word for titanium, to Titanic. See what I did there? I didn't do anything because there's no correlation. They just sound similar. I haven't seen Titanic since I was a teenager, and I hated the movie when I was a teenager because I was a little douchebag teenager who was super jealous of Leo because he was pretty. Revisiting it as a 30-year-old, I love this movie. I watched reviews afterwards just to kind of like, see what people's, just headspaces was just for like years and years ago. And people either loved the romance and didn't, and they kind of like fell off about, when the actual Titanic stuff happened, or reverse, they loved all the Titanic stuff and they just, could care less about the romance, or the romance actually kind of hindered it. For me, the whole movie works. Like, the romance, is it cliche? Yeah, but I mean, it's good to watch. Is the villain like just super, just like cartoonishly evil? Yeah, but it's good to watch. And the effects just, of course, I mean, James Cameron, the effects are going to be good. Um, and like I made this comment in a TikTok that I made about it, but it's funny that James Cameron has this thing with water. His first movie being Piranha 2, then he had The Abyss, he had Titanic, he had Avatar: The Way of Water. Dude loves water, and that's hilarious to me that that's a recurring thing. But Titanic is such a great movie, especially like if you can sit through a 3 hour movie. Great movie. Don't watch the. I don't know if it's got an alternate ending or if it's just a deleted scene. But when Rose throws the diamond over at the end, there's a different version of that that's way worse. So watch the original ending. But other than that, Titanic, great movie. Next up, Spartacus, a Stanley Kubrick movie that I've been avoiding because Stanley Kubrick, I don't think he disowned this movie, but he didn't have like a whole lot of control that he would have liked, because apparently Kirk Douglas had like most of the control, or maybe it was there was like a tug of war from what I understand. So I've been avoiding it. I didn't hate it. Another over 3 hour movie. It was just, I mean, spectacle wise and everything, it was good. Again, especially when you think about it being from the '60s, early '60s at that. It's very impressive. But it's, yeah. It'd be hard for me to sell the movie to a modern movie goer. I'm glad I watched it just as, someone who wants to learn all they can about film, but I don't really care. Moving on to Ben-Hur, which is actually a movie. It was gonna be the last movie of the AFI Top 100 that I watched, but then I forgot about Yankee Doodle. But Ben-Hur, I've been putting this one off because I kind of like with Spartacus, I just did not care. But then I watched it, and Ben-Hur was what I kind of expected Spartacus to be, and then Spartacus was what I expected Ben-Hur to be, as far as like my reaction to it. Ben-Hur, this one was, I think, one of the longest ones I've watched this year. Is like 3 hours and 40 minutes. Could it have been shorter? Probably, but it was still Like, I liked it. Um, I'm also a huge fan of the Prince of Egypt, and I could see where Prince of Egypt pulled a lot of stuff from Ben Hur, especially with the chariot races and stuff like that. So I liked that. I do think oh, and there was a scene apparently it was removed from the theatrical release about a guy saying how or liking oysters and snails. He compared that to like being bisexual. He didn't say the word bisexual, but it was very much implied that he liked women and men. And the way like he brought up the analogy and was great. And the version of the movie I watched had it in there, so I didn't watch the theatrical release, I guess. Um, but yeah, I mean, it was a banger. So yeah, Ben Hur, I actually enjoyed it. The stuff with Jesus, I didn't hate it, but like the last little bit felt, not that it came out of nowhere, because Jesus does like show up throughout the movie, but then for like the last like 20 or 30 minutes to focus on like the crucifixion and stuff. Again, I didn't hate it. It felt like there was a weird amount of time spent on that whenever that wasn't like the focus of the movie. But I mean, that's more of like I'm confused and interested by that choice, not that that was a negative. Down to my last two movies, Yankee Doodle, or I'm sorry, Yankee Doodle Dandy. Um, Old movie from the 40s. I should have expected there to be blackface. There was blackface. So yeah, that was a thing. There's I don't remember there being anything else too problematic in the movie, but there was another movie I think I watched last month, maybe the month before, called, I think it was Swing Time, and there was also blackface in it. Apparently, not that blackface is ever okay, but apparently in that movie it was meant to be an homage. They were just stupid. But in this one, it's just blackface for the sake of blackface. So that happened. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's a musical about the dude who made the Grand O flag or High Flying Flag, and another song, and it's just about his life. So I mean, the blackface was very jarring. I wasn't expecting it. And the last movie that I watched this year, I wasn't planning for it to be the last movie that I watched. It just kind of like happened because with New Year's stuff happening, I didn't have time to watch another movie. But No One Will Save You, Alien Home Invasion movie from this year. And it's kind of fitting that this one is the last movie because I've been in therapy, not to get like too personal, but I've been in therapy for about a year and a half after my divorce, and a big recurring theme is making sure that I focus on the stuff that I can control. Obviously, stuff happens in your life that you can't control, but you need to put your energy towards the stuff that you can control, because otherwise you're just gonna drive yourself crazy. And so with No One Will Save You, it's kind of, I draw a parallel because in the movie, this girl, something happened, or this woman, something happened when she was a girl. And this small town hates her. Like they basically ostracized her. And then this alien invasion happens, and she has to save herself. And it's such, at least for me, it was very poetic with my own personal life. That's not the intention of the movie. I don't think was that, oh, let's make an alien invasion movie so people can cope with their divorce. But for me, they kind of did that. As far as the movie itself, I loved it. I saw a lot of criticism about the alien design. They were just very stereotypical, just gray, big head, big eyed, just aliens with some cool variations. A lot of people complained about the lack of dialogue. I think there's like one or two spoken like sentences in the whole movie, if that. But I enjoyed this movie a lot, and then the ending kind of came out of left field. There is um a a tonal shift. Sorry, I don't know words. kind of like how Saltburn, how the ending just like took a hard right, or like whoa. So this one kind of does that, but for the better. Saltburns was kind of jarring and it didn't really work for me necessarily, but this one worked better. Um, but yeah, so no one will save you was again in and of itself as a movie. I think it was good, but then for me, it being the last movie that I watched in 2023 is actually poetic. And is that me finding too much meaning and being too like symbolic when I shouldn't be? Perhaps, but I'm gonna carry that into the new year. So anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and wrap it up there. So yeah, 454 movies. This video is almost an hour. I'm sorry. And yeah, I'll make another video talking about like what the future plans are for me as a person and me as a YouTuber and stuff like that. But yeah, I hope everyone has a great day. I hope y'all have a fantastic year. If y'all set New Year's resolutions, I hope y'all stick to them. This is the first New Year's resolution that I've ever done, doing the movie a day thing. So yeah, it can be done. But as always, if you have any requests, recommendations, suggestions, or questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below. I hope everyone has a fantastic day and a fantastic new year, and I will see y'all later.